Hello. Today, we are going to be making apple jelly. For this project, we will need some apples, honey, pectin, and lemon juice, as well as mason jars of your choice. The recipe that we are following is actually coming from the pectin box, but after making the apple jelly, I would like to add a few additional, but hopefully helpful changes to try and make sure you get a better result than I did. First, you want to cut up your apples into about 1 inch to 1/2 inch pieces. Don't forget to wash them, and don't worry about coring or skinning the apple. Everything is getting boiled down and filtered out later. At this time, you also want to get a pot of water to a rolling boil. The recipe I follow calls for a 2:1 water to apple volume ratio, but I would recommend that you stick to something closer to 1:1. So if you have 3 cups worth of apples, boil around 3 cups of water. While we're cutting, I want to talk about why we're doing this. These apples came from a local farm, and since it's late in the fall, I know that these are probably the last of the apples coming locally from my farmer's market. So making apple jellies out of them is a great way to continue to enjoy them through the winter and spring. When it comes to food, I would almost always recommend buying locally, because you know where the product is coming from, and there are always ways to preserve foods so that you can enjoy them out of season. Buying local also helps to support your local business while keeping your environmental footprint to a minimum. The recipe that we're using also calls for honey, which is almost always available locally, keeps indefinitely, and local honey is made from local pollen, which can help reduce your seasonal allergies from local plants. Now back to the apples. Once everything is cut, add them to the boiling water and cover the pot for around 20 minutes. Stir the apples around occasionally, and after about 10 to 15 minutes, you'll be able to press the apples to the side of the pot and squeeze out juices from them. I would also recommend trying to mash the apples like you would potatoes if you have a fine sieve or cheesecloth. Mashing will make the end product a bit more flavorful without needing to boil the apples for too long. After around 20 to 25 minutes of boiling the apples, take it off the heat and transfer it into a large bowl with a sieve or cheesecloth and make sure that there are no solids. Be sure to keep the pot ready for later. After pouring my mixture into the cheesecloth, I let it sit for around 5 minutes to filter through. During this time, I would recommend starting to prepare your mason jars. Fill up a new pot that is taller than the mason jar itself and fill it with water. Put the mason jars inside the pots unlidded and make sure that fill up completely and are submerged. Then, put the pot onto the stove to simmer and put the lids into the water as well to be sanitized. Do this until the water reaches a light boil, turn off the heat, and let the mason jar sit in the hot water until they are ready to be used. Going back to our filtering, once all of the fluid naturally filters out, press down on the remaining solids to squeeze out as much liquid as you can, but not hard enough to push through solids. After this, you can put the solids aside and use them as compost. Now we can add a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. I also added about 3/4 of a cup of honey and about a tablespoon of pectin to the hot mixture, but I would use a bit more pectin than I did. However, I would recommend mixing the pectin and honey separately before adding them to the apple water mixture. Then transfer everything back to the original pot and bring that to a rolling boil. As the mixture is reaching a boil, mix heavily. And once it reaches a rolling boil, keep it there for about 2 minutes, stirring occasionally before turning off the heat. Once the mixture is taken off the heat, take out the mason jars, empty them of water, and fill up the jars with the mixture, stopping about 1/4 inch to the top. Put the lids onto the mason jar and place them back into the pot with water, making sure they are submerged. Then bring the pot to a rolling boil for about 10 minutes. After boiling, you should be able to press the lid of the mason jar and not be able to hear a click like you would if it wasn't pressurized. And that's it. All that's left is to leave the jars to cool for 24 hours before you can enjoy your very own homemade apple jelly. Thank you for watching.